We're here at Digital CPA where we just heard a great keynote session from Dr. Tasha Eurich, an organizational psychologist and best-selling author. She speaks about self-awareness, which is something that all leaders, and in particular CEOs and CPAs, really need to develop as they want to bring their teams forward and accomplish great things. So Tasha, thanks so much for being here with me today. I just want to start off first with, a high-level definition of what self-awareness is.
Self-awareness is a term we throw around a lot, right? And usually people mean different things, but our team has been researching it for almost 9 years now and has simplified it. Number one, self-awareness means understanding who we are. And number two, we also have to understand how other people see us. So understanding who we are and how we're seen.
So that's wonderful. Why does it matter? If I know who I am, why does it even matter what everybody else thinks of me?
It matters even more than I thought I would when we started this research program. So what we've discovered, we and others, is that people who are self-aware are more successful at work, they're better performers, they get more promotions, they're better communicators, better influencers, they tend to be more creative, and they're more respected and effective leaders. And there's also mounting evidence that shows that there is a financial benefit to having as many self-aware employees and leaders in your company as you possibly can. And there's a lot of ancillary benefits that happen outside of work, but that's the main kind of group. I call it the meta skill of the 21st century for one reason. When you think about all the skills that we need to be successful nowadays, adaptability, influence, just flexibility in general, we can only be as good at those things as we are self-aware.
Thank you for that, Tasha. In my conversations with different professionals, I often hear people say that, they think that they're very self-aware. Is that actually true? Are we all really good at knowing who we are and how others perceive us?
So it's not the best news. I will say we're all in this together. What our team has found is that 95% of people believe that they're self-aware, but only about 10 to 15% of us actually are. So the delta on that is significant. The joke I always make is 80% of us on a good day are lying to ourselves about whether we're lying to ourselves. And there's actually a pretty easy pivot that we can all make, and it's to gently stop assuming that we're self-aware. In other words, not beat ourselves up or hate ourselves or put ourselves down, but just have an open curiosity and say, no matter how well I think I know myself, there's always going to be more to learn.
That sounds wonderful, and I think some of our viewers that are listening would probably be hearing that statistic and thinking, oh goodness, I hope I'm not in that larger percentage. So if, for those listening, what are some actionable steps that they can take right now to find out where they fall and how self-aware they are?
So the easiest way in terms of actionability is to take our insight quiz, which is a free 5-minute assessment where you fill it out, you ask someone else to fill it out for you and get their feedback, and then you get this really nice report that says your results and a couple of ideas to improve. So I think it's a good idea to ask, how self-aware am I really? A couple of other things we covered in today's session. Number one was to work on your introspection. And this is kind of outside of the scope of this video, but we reviewed a lot of research that shows that most people introspect the wrong way. And the easiest way to make those changes is instead of asking yourself instead of asking yourself why questions, to ask what questions. So for example, hypothetically, not why did I get in a fight with my husband about how to unload the dishwasher, but what part did I play in that conversation? Or what can I do differently next time to have things go better? And then the other tool we talked about was more about understanding how we're seen by others. The most self-aware people in our research have a cadre of no more than 5 people who are their loving critics. And what that means is they are people who support them no matter what, but people who are also willing to tell them the good, the bad, and the brutal truth when it's needed.
Wonderful. Those are 2 great tips, and we'll be sure to put the link to the quiz in the comments section. In closing, I think I just want to ask you one more question, which is, anyone listening, certainly they can do the work on themselves, but what about, a boss or a colleague or a peer or a client that's completely, not self-aware? How do you work with somebody like that, and how do you tell them that they're not self-aware?
This is a big topic, so I'm going to try to distill it down to a couple of hopefully actionable suggestions. The first thing I would say that I've learned personally and I've seen countless times in my clients is unless we formally supervise a person, we can't manage other people's self-awareness journeys. And as much as we want to sometimes, the question is, would it be better if I put that energy into my own self-awareness journey? But I realize that doesn't make the jerk down the hall less annoying or less difficult to deal with. So just to give you one tool, this is actually one that I developed when I myself was working for a very unself-aware CEO. And it came about from my childhood favorite show, which was the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And Lou Grant, played by Ed Asner, was this very gruff, belligerent, often mean guy. But what I noticed is when there was a laugh track behind some of his comments, he became easier to deal with, even funny, even endearing. So I started to imagine a laugh track behind the unaware comments that my boss would make. And it didn't help 100% of the time every day, but I noticed that I was able to snap out of that situation and have a lot more emotional control. It's actually kind of a reframing tool, and we know from the research that that helps us be more in charge of how we're responding and not let these people get to us.
Great advice. So you can't control that person's actions, but you can control your reaction.
Exactly.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me here today, Dr. Eurich. And for everybody listening, this was a great close to Digital CPA. We look forward to seeing you next year.